I think the feeling 7 years ago was, you must be crazy. Why? Because I was leaving my 6-figure job, high rolling, high flying, literally flying. That means, going to several countries in Africa because I was handling sub-Saharan Africa. And it was scary. It was scary to leave that comfort to start something that literally had zero revenues. Fast forward to now. Now it's more unbelievable, right? Because I don't think I saw that we would have grown this much. So I think I can tell the why best by sharing where it all started. So here I was working at GE, General Electric, and I got in finance. My background is actually finance. And then I got to a point, I felt I don't want to continue accounting for historical numbers. I want to be at the forefront of where the numbers are coming in. And GE was at a point where they're just starting what they will call the sourcing department, pretty much what we all know as procurement. And so, because it was, again, setting it up, you get to choose which do you want. So I decided to pick professional services. Actually, truly, it was one of the most challenging, right? So professional services had training, audit services, recruitment, any professional service you can think of that an organization needs to consume. And that I was handling for Sub-Saharan Africa. And the interesting bit about the organization, I don't know whether I've seen this anywhere else, but as opposed to sales where you will get a target for bringing in revenue, for GE, the target was, as if you're in procurement, you get a target for cost reduction that is actually tracked by the CFO of Africa. And so in my area, professional services, one of the things that I began noticing is we were actually procuring services out of Africa. And so we began the journey of trying to find vendors in Africa. And one of the things that also struck out for me was the service background checks. So for us in GE, anyone who got in had to go through a background check. And that as well was being done by a company out of the US. So you can imagine a company in the US calling, let's pick, for example, a Ministry of Agriculture. You worked for the ministry. A company in the US calling the ministry here locally to find out information. Ideally, they're not going to get much, right? Because some of, Africa, we're just unique in our own ways. And so that is where it started. It started by, I'm actually very passionate about Africa. I believe we have what it takes for us to build Africa. So we don't have, honestly, to go to companies outside of Africa for us to get the services that we need in Africa. And that's how the journey started. So unfortunately, I could not find one company that could do this for the entire of Africa. So I decided to break it down into different regions. So South Africa, we got a company to do it. West Africa, we got a company in Nigeria to do it. But I couldn't find a company in East Africa. What I was getting is PI agencies. That is where I come in and say, we are not a PI agency. We don't do investigations. Don't call us for spousal cheating. We'll discuss more about what we do specifically. So that is where it started. It started by my passion for Africa. Solutions to be found in this continent. That, and also I wanted to contribute in my own small way to the issue that has been there of unemployment. with our own intricate and let me just call it dynamic, right? When we think about, let me even just start with recruitment. So you're seated across someone who you barely know, and you interview them. That means they only give you the information that they're giving you during the interview. And then at the end of it all, you give an offer and you start working together. Actually, majority of HR's recruitment, you do what you call reference checks. If you really think about it, reference checks are very biased, because what do you include in your references really? It's people who can really vouch for you. I'm not saying that, our work is to give you that on people. No, that's not the idea. But we want to give objective information, unbiased information that will help you make a decision, make an informed decision. So if I look at a candidate, for example, there is the identity, the education, the employment, criminal information. So if I'm to do it myself, as the HR, for example, that means I have to reach out to Ministry of Interior to get that information. I have to reach out to the education institution you studied to get that information. I have to reach out to several employers to get that information. And I have to reach out to the DCI for you to get all this information into one. So the idea is, or still is, or was, is, still is, that you get this one place, that you have all the information that you need about your candidate. This is the year that we've done the most verifications. So there's that pressure as well of that. You're also trying to deal with, what do you call it, capacity constraints, right? Where at a go you have to bring in 12 additional staff. So it's just been a very interesting year for us in terms of growth. At the same time, we have to adapt. So definitely the team, as you can tell, it's one of those things that, let me just say thank God for. Not sure it fits entirely my doing. I think the restructure also has really helped, because I can tell you for sure, we had really focused on selling. So sell. But when it comes to client engagement, customer support, all of that, for us, we were like, as long as you're bringing in, just keep bringing in. Yeah. 3 is we are also in a journey of digital transformation. So trying to get the right people to actually support us with this bit. And I can say thankfully, because of this forum as well, we got to meet one of the guys that you're really interacting with on this space to see how we can work together. That's Peleza. If you think about the clients that we deal with, we're dealing with a HR, and we're also dealing with either it's a credit officer or a credit manager, or it's compliance. And when you can imagine when you want to give a loan and someone is telling you, you have to wait for several days. Yeah, it won't work. So the idea is all the time we're trying to reduce the amount of time it takes for us to give you that information. So then that means continuously we're improving on reducing what we call TAT, our turnaround time on reports. It's one of those things that Christine really tracks as her metric. When we started, we were majorly focused on doing employment background checks. And that was our forte, that was our core. That's actually what we're really known in the market for. Here's COVID, and literally everyone has slowed down on, no one is hiring. In fact, Some are letting people go. So that already tells you then, remember we come in at the point of onboarding. So if no one is hiring, then that means we're not getting any work. With that, I remember our revenues dropped drastically. I remember with the first announcement of COVID in Kenya, it was like we were here and there was just a ship. The question is, how are we going to survive? So beauty is, we had a bit of savings from the previous good years. So we maintained the company with that. But of course, it was not going to hold in the long term. So what we did is something very interesting happened. We discovered that the services that we offer are actually also the same services. I mean, it's just a matter of packaging, right? One is employment verifications. The other can also be used for KYC. So we saw the KYC market. And so that's where we started focusing on, because as much as COVID had hit, there was still people taking loans. There were still people, opening, whether it's a bank account, because for KYC, we deal a lot with fintechs and banks. What we're looking at is a situation where we've connected to the relevant databases that we require the information from. So that means if something, for example, used to take us 2 days, it's instant. The other area that we're looking at is, in addition to even just us having the transformation, it's to empower our data providers. I'll give you an example. Educational institutions, majority of them, for you to get that data, it's just too manual. So what I'm basically looking at is a world where the best thing that we can achieve as Peleza the biggest risk for us generally is accuracy of information, because if you think about it, this is organizations placing trust in us and saying that, Peleza, when you give me this information, I believe that it's the absolute truth. If we give you incorrect information, that can definitely, absolutely ruin us. And that's why we are very keen on any piece of information we give you comes from what we call primary data sources. 2, it has to be backed up. Of course, technology, in the sense that you need to adapt, you need to evolve, you need to embrace and keep innovating. So if it's AI, how do we begin to implement AI in what we do? If it's blockchain, I think it's something that definitely is one of those areas that we have to go into. Why? Because we are a contributor in that sense.